Oluchi sat on the cold floor of her bedroom, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Fresh wounds marked her face, painful reminders of the beating she had endured the night before. She knew deep down that she should leave. Any woman with common sense would have packed her bags and run years ago. But where would she go? Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, living there rent-free. Words spoken to her on her wedding day, words that had chained her to this life. A woman must endure in her husband's house. Whatever happens, do not come back home. It is a taboo for a woman to return to her father's house. Tears streamed down Aluchi's face as she remembered. Her two small children were the only reasons she stayed. The thought of another woman raising them or mistreating them made her heart ache more than any beating ever could. That fear chained her to this broken marriage. That fear forced her to endure pain, insults and beatings from the man who was supposed to love her. Oluchi never wanted to marry Chidi. At 20 years old, she had been full of dreams, bubbling with life, excited to start university, dreaming of building a business of her own. But her parents had different plans. It all started the day her only brother, Nonso, spoke to their father, Mazi. Nonso wanted to travel to China to start an importation. Business Nonso, the family's golden boy, the one who had squandered every chance he had ever been given, the one who lived recklessly, drank too much, gambled too much, and always came crawling back home with new excuses. Still, he was their only son, and for that he could do no wrong. Their father had already sold lands to help Nonso start businesses, before each one ending in disaster. But now there was nothing left to sell, no land, no house, no property. Nonso begged and pleaded, promising that this time would be different. This time he would succeed, if only they could find the money to send him abroad. Mazi stayed up all night thinking, and then he found the answer. He would sell the only thing of value left in their home, Oluchi. They would marry her off to a wealthy man. The bride price would fund Nonso's trip to China, a plan so cruel yet so simple. One evening Mazi called Oluchi to him. "Oluchi," he said excitedly, "prepare yourself. You are getting married to a rich, handsome man named Chidi. You know him. He's very wealthy. He's coming next week to marry you." Oluchi stared at her father, her heart dropping. "But Papa, I don't even know this Chidi," she whispered. "I don't love him. I want to go to school. I have dreams." Tears filled her eyes. But Mazi's face hardened. "You are a woman," he snapped. "Your duty is to help this family. Your brother needs money to go to China. Your marriage will give him that chance. This is a small sacrifice for the success of your brother. And what do you even need school for? A woman's place is in her husband's house, in the kitchen." Her mother nodded silently in agreement, sealing Aluchi's fate. A few days later, Oluchi was married to Chidi. She cried through the entire wedding ceremony, but no one cared. Her bride price was collected. The money was used to buy Nonso's plane ticket and fund his new dreams. While Oluchi was thrown into a marriage with a man she barely knew. The first few weeks were bearable, loveless, but peaceful. Oluchi, remembering her mother's lessons, fulfilled her wifely duties. She cooked, cleaned, and tended to the house. She did everything to avoid her husband, but peace never lasts long when built on a cracked foundation. It didn't take long for Chidi's true nature to surface. Chidi was a woman-beater, and he beat his wife. Oluchi barely survived the early months of her marriage. At the slightest provocation, Chidi would beat her without mercy. One night, just a few months after the wedding, he beat her so badly that Oluchi thought she would die. He would come home drunk, demanding food. When she told him she had kept it warm in the pot, he would accuse her of being disrespectful and lazy, and then he would beat her until her body was weak and trembling. It didn't take much. A lost business deal, a bad day at work, even the smallest mistake, all became reasons for Chidi to unleash his rage on her fragile body. One terrible night, after another brutal beating, Oluchi could not take it any longer. With bruises covering every inch of her skin, she packed a small bag and ran straight to her father's house. She knocked on the door frantically, like a woman running from death itself. Her mother opened the door, her eyes widening in shock. "Oluchi, "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Mama!" Oluchi cried, her voice shaking. "He will kill me. I can't go back there. Please, let me stay." Hearing the commotion, her father, Mazi, stormed out of the inner room, his face twisted in anger. "What is this nonsense?" he barked. "Why are you here, Oluchi?" "Papa," she sobbed. "Look at me. Look at the wounds on my body. Chi beat me again. If I go back there, he will kill me. Please, Papa, Mama, I beg you." But Mazi's face hardened even more. "You are a married woman. You have no place here," he thundered. "Better to die in your husband's house than bring shame to your father's house." Despite their harsh words, that night they allowed her to sleep under their roof. Oluchi cried herself to sleep, thinking she was finally safe. But she was wrong. The next morning, her parents summoned Chidi. When he arrived, they forced Oluchi to kneel before him. "Beg your husband for forgiveness," her mother ordered coldly. "But Mama, I did nothing wrong," Oluchi cried, her heart breaking anew. "He beat me. I only tried to survive." Before she could say more, a hard slap landed across her face. But this time it wasn't from Chidi. It was from her own father. "I said kneel and beg him," Mazi roared. Tears streaming down her bruised cheeks, Oluchi knelt before the man who had almost killed her. "I'm sorry," she whispered in shame. "Please take me back." Mazi stared down at her with disappointment. "Now go home," he commanded, "and be a good wife. Never disgrace us like this again." Chidi smirked, victorious. He had won, and Oluchi, broken and humiliated, followed him back to the house where her suffering only deepened. After that day, something inside Chidi snapped completely. If her own family could side with him, who could stop him? The beatings became part of Aluchi's daily life. He no longer needed a reason to hit her. He beat her for serving food too late. He beat her for speaking too softly, too loudly, or not at all. He beat her in front of their children. It became normal. Her best friend, Amaka, tried everything to save her. "Oluchi," Amaka said tearfully, "how long will you survive like this? This is not marriage. This is torture. Please, leave." Oluchi wept in her friend's arms. "Where will I go, Amaka? My parents will never take me back." Amaka squeezed her hand tightly. "Then run. Run and never look back. Your children need you alive, Oluchi. Don't wait until the day they find your dead body on the floor. Come and stay with me. We'll manage somehow, but you must leave." Oluchi sobbed harder. She knew her friend was right. But the fear of the unknown gripped her too tightly. Meanwhile, Oluchi had a neighbor, Adora. Adora was also trapped in the same nightmare. Her husband beat her too, just like Chidi beat Oluchi. Sometimes they sat together in Oluchi's living room, their faces battered and bruised, sharing their pain like broken sisters. One afternoon, both women sat side by side, nursing fresh wounds. Oluchi stared at Adora through swollen eyes. "How bad was it this time?" Oluchi whispered. Adora sighed bitterly. "He was drunk again. He accused me of stealing his money. I told him I didn't. But he beat me anyway." She wiped a tear from the corner of her eye. "That's what they do," Adora added grimly. "Spend all their money in beer parlors and then blame us when they have nothing left." Oluchi nodded, her heart heavy. "It was the same with me," she said. "Yesterday, he said the food I served was too cold, and he beat me like I was a thief." She paused, her voice cracking. "Sometimes I wish I could just disappear with my children and never come back." Adora looked at her with tired eyes. "I wish that too," she said. "My brother begged me to leave years ago, but my mother warned me never disgrace the family." She shook her head sadly. "Now here I am, waiting for the day this man kills me." Then she grabbed Aluchi's hand firmly. "Promise me something." Aluchi looked at her, startled. "If anything ever happens to me, you must run. Don't stay. Don't let them kill you too. Promise me, Aluchi." Tears welled up in Aluchi's eyes. "Don't talk like that, Adora," she whispered. "You won't die. Maybe one day we'll be free." But deep inside, both women knew the truth. Freedom felt like a faraway dream. "You will be alive," Oluchi replied sadly, but Adora squeezed her hand tighter. "Oluchi, please." she whispered. "Promise me, if anything ever happens to me, you will leave your abusive home." Tears welled up in Aluchi's eyes. She nodded and promised softly, "Yes, I promise." That day they hugged each other tightly and waved goodbye as Adora left for her house. 2 days later, the news hit Oluchi like a thunderbolt. Adora was dead. Her husband had beaten her as usual, but this time he had beaten her to death. And then he fled. The police were looking for him, but he had vanished. Oluchi broke down. She wept and wailed without stopping. She thought about their last conversation, Adora's final request, and she realized with horror it could easily have been her. That night, Oluchi didn't even hesitate. With trembling hands, she packed her 2 children. Her heart pounded with fear, scared that Chidi might catch her. But she didn't care anymore. All she wanted was to get away. A few hours later, she arrived at her best friend Amaka's house. Amaka welcomed her with open arms, tears of relief filling her eyes. Without wasting time, Oluchi began to rebuild her life. She washed clothes. She scrubbed floors. She sold akara by the roadside. She worked from morning till night, anything just to feed her children and not be a burden on Amaka. Amaka stood by her every step of the way, never complaining. Meanwhile, back at home, life for Aluchi's parents was falling apart. Nonso, the golden son they had sacrificed everything for, was a disaster. Instead of building a business in China, Nonso squandered the money on gambling, alcohol, and reckless living. Worse still, he got involved with drug trafficking. It wasn't long before he was caught and deported. One miserable day, Nonso returned home, with nothing but the clothes on his back and rage in his heart. He became a terror in their home. He stole money from his mother. He sold off everything in sight, little by little until nothing was left. When there was nothing more to steal, Nonso started beating his own parents. Mazi and Mama Oluchi cried every day. Their once proud home had become a prison. They lived in fear of the very son they had chosen over their daughter. Meanwhile, Oluchi's life was beginning to bloom. One evening, as she struggled to carry a heavy basin of clothes for a wealthy customer, a car pulled up beside her. A tall, handsome man stepped out. "Let me help you," he offered kindly. Startled, Oluchi stepped back. "No, sir, I'm fine," she said quickly. But the man smiled warmly. They got talking. His name was Kaneti. He was a successful businessman, owner of several thriving companies. Before she could even believe it, Kaneti offered her a job as a receptionist in one of his offices. Oluchi went the very next day, and just like that, for the first time in years, she had a stable income. She could finally afford good food for her children. She could finally help Amaka pay the rent. She could finally breathe. Over time, Kaneti and Oluchi grew close. He admired her strength, her determination, her quiet resilience, and Oluchi saw in him everything she had once thought impossible: patience, kindness, genuine love. One day, Kaneti asked Oluchi to marry him. Tears of joy filled her eyes as she said yes. They had a beautiful wedding. For the first time in her life, Oluchi had a real home. Her children had a real father, and Kaneti didn't stop there. He sponsored her education, paid for her tuition, her books, even hired a nanny to help with the kids. Oluchi graduated with pride. She was no longer the helpless woman trapped in pain. She was a strong, independent, educated woman, deeply loved and respected. Oluchi often knelt by her bedside and thanked God for rewriting her story. Back in her parents' home, things only got worse. Nonso's violence grew day by day. One night, after beating Mama Oluchi because she hadn't cooked for him, the old couple sat together in tears. "Biko," Mama Oluchi sobbed, "what did we do to deserve this?" Mazi wiped his eyes and whispered, "We made the wrong choices. We abandoned our daughter and worshipped our son. Now look at us. We should go and beg Oluchi," Mama Oluchi said weakly. "But," Mazi hesitated, "will she ever forgive us?" They both wept bitterly, realizing they had no one left. No property, no peace, nothing. One morning, broken and desperate, Mazi and Mama Oluchi decided to take their chances. Maybe Just maybe Oluchi would forgive them. Meanwhile, Oluchi was in her office reviewing business reports. She wore a smart dress, her hair neatly done, her confidence shining brighter than the sun outside. Suddenly, her secretary walked in and said, "Softly, madam. There are 2 elderly visitors here to see you. They say they are your parents." Oluchi froze. She was shocked. Her parents had come. She hadn't seen them in years, not since they had forced her back to Chidi, not since they had abandoned her, left her to suffer alone. She didn't know how she felt. Anger? Bitterness? Sadness? She wasn't sure, but she couldn't turn them away. She told her secretary to let them in. Mazi and Mama Oluchi walked into her office. They looked weak, tired, and defeated. Their clothes were worn and faded. Her mother's hands were trembling. Her father seemed like a shadow of the man he once was. For a long moment, neither of them could speak. Then, after what felt like forever, Mama Oluchi fell to her knees. "Aluchi, my daughter, please forgive us," she sobbed. Maisie, too, looked broken. "We were wrong," he said, his voice trembling. "We treated you badly. We forced you into that marriage. We are so sorry." Oluchi stared at them in silence for a while. Then, with a cold fury that had built up for years, she finally spoke. "Is that all? You're sorry?" She stood, her voice sharp with pain. "You did. Worse than that. You didn't just force me into a marriage. You sold me. You threw me into hell. And when I came to you for help, what did you do?" She took a step closer, her eyes blazing with fury. "You sent me back. You made me kneel before the man who almost killed me. All for what? For your precious son, Nonso." Her mother sobbed harder. "Aluchi, Uchi. We didn't know what else to do. We needed money for your brother. We thought we were doing the right thing, but now we see what we've done." She cried even harder. "Nonso ruined us. He has beaten us. He has sold the few things of value. We had left. We have nothing now. Please help us, Aluchi. Please forgive us. We are old and we need your help." But Oluchi's anger didn't fade. She stared down at her parents, her heart cold. "You made your choice. You chose him over me." She let out a bitter laugh. "You threw me away like garbage. You sold me as property to raise money for him. And now you want me to save you?" She looked away, her face hard. "Where were you when I had nowhere to go, when I begged you for help?" Her voice cracked slightly, but the anger remained. "You turned your back on me first. So now you must lie in the bed you made." Oluchi's voice was cold and final. She motioned to the door. "Get out of my office!" Her parents screamed, begged, and fell to their knees. But Oluchi didn't flinch. She didn't look back. Some betrayals couldn't be forgotten. Oluchi heard that Chidi, her ex-husband, had remarried. This time, he had married a younger woman named Amara. Oluchi felt a twinge of sadness for her. She knew what was coming. Chidi would soon turn Amara into another punching bag. But Oluchi didn't allow herself to dwell on it. Her life had changed for the better. She had moved on, and she would not let the past pull her back. She lived happily with her husband Kenneti and her children. She had a life she had fought for, a life that was hers and hers alone. Meanwhile, her parents continued to suffer. Nonso had ruined their lives. He had stolen their money. He had sold their possessions. And now he was terrorizing them. One night, after beating Mama Oluchi for not cooking food for him, Mazi and Mama Oluchi sat together crying. "What did we do to deserve this?" Mama Oluchi whispered. Mazi wiped his eyes and sighed. "We made the wrong choices," he said quietly. "We abandoned our daughter and worshipped our son, thinking he would be our salvation." He shook his head sadly. "Now look at us. We are left with nothing but regret." Mama Oluchi sniffled. "Maybe we should go and beg Oluchi," she said softly. Mazi was quiet for a moment. "Will she forgive us? Will she take us back?" Mama Oluchi shook her head. "No," she whispered. "Oluchi can never forgive us." A few days later, Oluchi sat in her office reviewing business reports. Her life was stable. Her future was bright. Suddenly, her secretary came in. "Madam, your parents are here to see you." Questions to reflect on. Would you forgive your parents if they had treated you like Aluchis did? Do parents always favor their sons over their daughters? And if so, why? In your own family, do the daughters take better care of the parents as they age? I'd love to hear your thoughts below. And remember, if you enjoyed this story, like, share, and subscribe for more tales that make you think about the complexities of life. Until next time, stay strong, stay true.